Myisha.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
Thank you so much for agreeing to talk with me. I'm so excited about this.
You're welcome. I didn't have to take some time away, and I was like, well, what's in the email? So I'm grateful to do this.
Could you maybe tell us a little bit about yourself and the check your privilege mission and all that?
Oh, absolutely. All right, guys. So I'm Myisha T. Hill. I am the guy, the founder of Check Your Privilege. I'm an awesome and exhausted mom of three children, two with high functioning autism and one with ADHD. So my life is never boring. This movement was really created to really not think about cancel culture or participate in it, but to really ask myself, what would it be like to be a guide or be someone to help folks recognize how their unchecked privilege and participation in systems of domination impact the mental health of Black, Brown, Indigenous, Southeast Asian, and Asian Pacific Islander peoples around the globe, because it's now a global movement. It was just me in Oakland at first, and we have a community all around the world, including New Zealand.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and so it's really been an incredible journey of like walking alongside folks from around the world and helping them unpack their relationship with power, privilege, and the systems of domination.
Yeah, it's great. And also, you guys have like workshops and workbooks on the
Mm-hmm.
site that allows allies to be very hands-on, which I think is just, I mean, it's so useful to have that interactive resource.
Oh, absolutely. Yep, we have a co-conspirators lounge, which is like a membership. You get a monthly masterclass and Q&A. We have books, free workbooks, paid workbooks. We try to make this platform as accessible as possible, which is also why we go live on Instagram 3 times a week. Our YouTube channel is launching. We're doing what we can to really let folks know, like, hey, we want to support you on your journey and come hang out with us.
And your book, Live into the Work. Could you talk a little bit about it and like what it is?
Yeah, so I'm like looking right at it. It's over on the table. It is an anthology series signed to Dirtpath Publishing. 7 series of books. The first book, Live into the Work, was really an anthology of short essays featuring women across the country sharing their work of what the invitation to live into the experience feels like. Because we know that storytelling transforms lives and can help someone else on their journey.
Mm.
And so we wanted to get 6 different stories from women to help other women on their journey into anti-racism. So it's really an exploration of why they chose to live into the experience. You know, because oftentimes educators and guides and scholars will say, do your work, right? And as someone who is also a life coach and a mental health advocate, doing is a constant state of productivity. And so the goal, Kitty, was really to say, well, let's just not just do it, but let's live into it, because that means that you're stepping into transformation and the transformative process of living in the experience, which means that it starts with you and then it impacts your family and your community and so on.
I love
So,
that. And it definitely did that for me. It's very eye-opening. And what's interesting about it is most of the essays are white women talking about it. Like they're talking about their journey. Yeah, it was just very inspiring to read. And it made me, want to get off my butt and like start listening and learning and reading. But
absolutely. I think the cool part is it's 4 white women and 2 Black women in this first book, and we're preparing to release our second book in November, The Exchange. And this anthology is really helping people lean into the discomfort of the journey. So it's live into the work, and now it's lean into the discomfort. And we have a male who's a part of the project. And so I'm really excited to have like the eye opening of like, wait, what do you mean? I thought you only worked with women. No, because you can also step in with the same invitation. So I'm excited.
it can be quite a tough thing for people to do to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
And this, quoting you here in your editor's note, you said that the journey begins with awareness followed by a call to action and then requires us to face ourselves and our misdoings, including those that have brought us shame. And I mean, it sounds very scary, and it sounds like a very almost embarrassing thing to try and work out, because no one wants to see themselves as a racist. Like,
Exactly.
that can be very scary. So I guess, do you have any, this is a big question, but do you have any words of wisdom for those who are maybe subconsciously dealing with white fragility and are daunted to begin the work to become an anti-racist?
Absolutely. Yeah, because it's that fear that can lead you to ghost the process. So it's really about, seeing the shame and not sitting with it, right? It's what you do with it that matters. And I'm not Brene Brown, so I'm not the expert of shame, but there is something called shame resiliency. And one of our partners, a Good Place Therapy and Consultant, has created a whole workbook around the resiliency that's needed in the process. And so it first begins with really, it is hard to admit, okay, I've been complicit in this system. I don't want to name it, but if you don't call it what it is, you won't free yourself, right, from that title. And so that's why I'm always telling people that you are striving to actively become anti-racist. You're becoming, just like Michelle Obama's book, is that when you begin with the labeling and the naming, you start to free yourself from the shame of not wanting to admit it, right? Because that is that shame that keeps us from not participating, from hosting the process. Is we don't want to explicitly name our participation because we're embarrassed. But, it's almost like my son who, is all, oh, don't help me with my homework. I got it. I don't want to ask for help because I feel that shame and he's 15. But then it's like, he hears me telling folks all the time, well, you know what? I will ask for help. I will say, I don't know how to do this. Mom, I don't know how to do this. Can you help me? And so if you put this in this anti-racist context, it's when you first call it what it is and say, in one of our workshops, it's called Breaking the Addiction of Privilege. We actually say, for example, my name is Myisha T. Hill. I am inherently racist, unconsciously biased, and actively striving to become anti-racist. That saying that gives us the freedom to step deeper into the work. So it's really a transformative process.
Reading the book and listening to your podcast and just listening to your stories, I'm so impressed by your patience and your kindness when being faced with someone who is maybe not doing something correct, and being small-minded, and how you treat that with patience and kindness and a willingness to teach. I think that obviously that's the most beneficial way to, treat allies, but I can imagine it's so frustrating.
It can be.
But I guess that kind of leads into the whole politically correct conventions that our society has formed that maybe aren't so great, such as colorblindness, seeing everyone as equal and just not seeing people's cultures, and also cancel culture, of course. So I guess, could you talk a little bit about your opinions on them?
Oh, gosh. There's so much, Kitty. Goodness. When I think about, cancel culture, I think about the ways that patriarchy works. Patriarchy is a tool of domination, right? And so what we've been taught in these systems is that if something has no value, that it's easy to replace it and throw it away. And so we have internalized this behavior as people, and we actually, when we cannot agree or find people to, be on the same side as us, when people are quote unquote toxic, which I'm going to just say we're all toxic. We all have toxic behaviors. That's a cultural universal, actually, that we're all of us can be highly problematic, including myself. We tend to throw things away that we don't agree with. We tend to, if it doesn't sit on our side, if it's not on the right or the left, or if you're not, it's just easy, right? Because you can replace someone. And that's something that you learn in patriarchy, is that, well, you've done a good job. You're not a best fit for us anymore. Thank you, but no thank you. We see that in corporations and organizations all the time, where people are being terminated from jobs because of their level of performance. And that's why I say with cancel culture, we need to just end this notion, because someone's not performing in a way that, and some behaviors are toxic and not good for one's mental health. But I think we need to see the humanity. It is, racism is a disease, dis-ease, right? It causes dis-ease. However, if we can just take a moment and recognize someone as, that person is still a human at the end of the day. Maybe it's not about canceling them. Maybe we can agree to disagree, and we can make space.
Yeah.
for that person to grow, not cancel them, not discard them. In terms of colorblind, like that was the notion of the 80s. Like, I don't want to say the Reagan administration, but there was a whole call, my generation, if you're 80s baby, depending on where you were raised, I was raised in the suburbs of California, we didn't see color. My best friends, I had an Irish best friend, Polynesian, Muslim, Japanese and black. So there were like 7 of us of different races. And so it was reinforced through my friendships because we had a cultural universal, just being cultural. Maybe it was size, maybe it was just different reasons why we were all best friends.
Mm.
And the notion of we don't see color was enforced. Like, we would say things in school lessons like, we don't see color. But the notion of not seeing color means that I don't see your humanity and I don't see your culture. And in a society that penalizes the Black experience, but loves to culturally appropriate the Black experience, it allows for anti-Blackness to be rampant in society. And so I want you to see my color. I want you to see my culture. I want you to identify me as a Black woman living in a body, as a spiritual being, having a lived experience. And so we have to see color, because what comes with color is a culture, and what comes with culture is appreciation and beauty. So
Absolutely. And things that we can learn from. I mean,
exactly. So many people are like, what do you mean check your privilege? What are you trying to say? And the one thing I'm always saying is that it's a double entendre. Like, it has a double meaning. I tell myself to check your privilege. My mom tells me to check my privilege. How about that? But it's really the invitation to go deeper than what, the pop culture reference of check your privilege really means.
yes. From a non-judgmental standpoint,
Yeah,
I think.
absolutely.
So, Brandy Varnado, is that how you say her name? I feel like
Yep,
I'm getting
Andy
it wrong.
Bernardo.
Amazing. Okay, first time try. She mentions in her chapter of the book how she has experienced backlash from within the Black community
Mm-hmm.
for expressing her culture in a place of education. So
Yeah.
I was just wondering if you had any experiences that were similar to
Oh,
that.
absolutely. Brandy and I are friends, and so that's one thing that um, we've spoken about, even as friends, is this idea of, you know, there's a generation older than us that, you can't really rock the boat.
Yeah.
You can't show up unapologetic, because then you are like, within the cultural reference, those other kind of Black folks. Um, and that has been reinforced by white supremacy, the classism that exists within our own culture, where we
Yeah.
don't even see each other as a human, where we have to assimilate, right? Because assimilation is how we get the really good corporate jobs. The way we as Black folks uphold white supremacy, these are conversations that I've had with many of my friends, because we choose to assimilate, can be problematic and harmful. That is due to racism. That's due to segregation. That's due to, in the 60s, the way colorism worked. If you were darker than a paper skin bag, right? You had a different level of privilege. If you were of mixed race, mulatto or Creole, you had a different experience. And that type of colorism has impacted us. Assimilation has impacted us until culturally, we as Black folks begin not to see each other and see our humanity. So when someone comes who is unapologetic, ready to rock the boat, ready to speak their truth, because of years after enslavement of not being able to and having to assimilate, it is uncomfortable to be in space with someone who does do that. It's almost a reference of, in an old workplace, a coworker used to say, well, here, I'll be the Martin Luther King and you can be the Malcolm X. That is very problematic. And it just goes to show how assimilation has worked in the corporate and cultural world.
Problem, I mean, if assimilation continues, nothing will ever change. Because
Exactly.
it's not like everything's fixed. It's not like everyone's on equal playing fields. It's absolutely not the case. And rocking the boat needs to occur.
Yeah. And that's what I love about your generation. There's like 2 generations behind me. I feel so old. Um, you all are like, yep, we're going to rock the boat. And if you don't like it, we don't care. I love that. And I'm all for it. I'm here for it.
Yeah. Well, I think it's because we've had people like you to look up to. And I think that, you know, we kind of need those leaders to show us the way. It's a never ending thing, I think. I think that it will be something that society is working at for a long time. But if we can keep living into the work,
Yep.
like you can't go wrong. And just to kind of get as many people aware as possible. I think awareness is really key. I often find myself getting annoyed with people who are similar to me and who have grown up in the same place as me, still very close-minded now.
Mm-hmm.
It bothers me a lot, and I try to have conversations, but like I said, this barrier that people have, they're like, I don't want to admit this about myself.
Yeah.
And if you don't, then you can't start the work.
Exactly. You know, Jay-Z said it. I quote Jay-Z all the time. You cannot heal what you won't reveal.
I love that.
If you can't, as I tell the co-conspirators, heal your way to fail forward in this work, you're doing this work wrong.
Yeah.
And I think healing is actually what we're trying to get to. Because if you heal it within yourself, then you heal 7 generations after you. You might not be able to control your friends or your parents, grandparents, but if you have this belief, right? And as you get older, and if you choose to have family or whoever you empower around you, they'll see the change and it'll spark them to change.
You also mention that, and I mean, it goes without saying that it's very important to listen to many views of Black, brown, and Indigenous people of color, like to go and read and listen to a multitude of opinions, not just one voice, but many voices.
Yeah.
So I was wondering, do you have any recommendations for books that maybe people could go look at, or some podcasts or whatever?
Yes, I'm going to pull it up right now because I knew that was coming. I tell people I always recommend Dr. Crystal M. Fleming's book, How to Be Less Stupid About Race. I always refer to people to read that over white fragility, because you're getting the work from the lens of critical race theory in a whole chapter. It is so good. I feel like that should be the starting point, is how to be less stupid about race. My next book would be So You Want to Talk About Race. That's a really, really phenomenal book. Another book I would recommend for folks to read would be Notes of a Native Son by James Baldwin. Women, Race, and Class by Angela Davis. Post-traumatic slave syndrome. And you know what? I'm going to put this, I'll send this list to you as well.
Great.
By Dr. Joy DeGruy. Feminism is for Everybody, and Hood Feminism. If you want to know more about the interlocking systems of domination, Bell Hooks has a really good video on YouTube about that. And then there's also a couple of links I can send you. And of course, you can read Check Your Privilege, Live Into the Work as well.
Absolutely. I will leave the links to a bunch of those in the description of this video. So to people watching right now, check it down below. This is also a tricky one. But do you have a quick summary, I say, of what it means to be an ally?
Being an ally, or as we say, co-conspirator, means that you're going to be able to take space and make space. Be mindful of the space you take up in the world. Center the experience of Black, Brown, Indigenous, Asian, Pacific Islander, and Southeast Asian people of color in your life. And when I say make space and take space, I mean step back before you step forward, because oftentimes dominant culture is not aware of the space that they actually take up in the world, intentionally or unintentionally. Be mindful of your microaggressions. If you don't know what that is, Kitty, I'm sure you can drop a link to what microaggressions are.
Yeah, I'll drop a bunch of resources down below.
Awesome. And then also just be mindful of the way that your bias shows up, because your bias inform the ways in which you relate to Black, Brown, and Indigenous people of color. An ally or a co-conspirator is someone who takes space and makes space, who's mindful of the space that they take up in the world. They center the experience and the journey of Black, Brown, Indigenous people of color. They're mindful of their microaggressions, and they continue to fight for social injustice around the world, but specifically in the United States.
Mm. This was wonderful. Thank you so much for chatting with me.
Welcome.
I think it's such a big topic. It is such a big topic. And it's nerve-wracking because it's like, where do we even begin?
Mm-hmm.
Where do we begin? How do we even scratch the surface? We truly cannot. But like I said, I think it's about awareness. And I think hopefully someone watching this video will see that, oh, maybe I do need to check myself. Maybe I should click some of the links in the description and go learn and inform myself and begin to work at it. Could you mention where we could find you on social media?
Absolutely. If you want to do the work of Check Your Privilege, I am at CK Your Privilege on Instagram and Facebook, or you can hang out with me at Myisha T. Hill on Instagram and Facebook. I hang out there the most.